What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right, welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out. Listeners, this is where you come from. What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Folks, don't forget to follow, subscribe, share this thing out, like it up. It really helps the show. Okay, so who are we talking to today? What are we doing today? Well, I've got Jerry Durand with me, and really interesting. The whole story layout of this thing is interesting. And you know, whenever I've got somebody on here that there's been, it's a white collar investigation and how it all transpires and that, but Jerry was an investor. You know, he had, and it was trading in foreign currency. He had investors that, you know, were expecting a return. Anyway, everything went from bad to worse to prison, and it was a pretty big case. And Jerry ended up getting 240 months. We were just talking about that. I actually thought that what I was reading was a typo. I didn't think that I was reading that right. And when we got on here before we hit the play button, I asked if that was really it. And it really is it. He had 240 months. He says COVID saved his life because he was able to get out after almost serving 9 years. But what's really interesting about Jerry is he hasn't let any of this keep him down. He's been out about 4 years, and he and I got connected by David Growski, who is somebody I think that actually was with Jerry at the time, or some of the time there in prison. And he's got a really interesting idea that he's developing, and it's called Prison Land. And you know, everybody's got some curiosity about what goes on in prison. How does it happen? What happens? What would it be like to live in it? And that's what this is. It's Prison Land, a game, and you actually become the inmate, and you buy your commissary, and you walk and do and whatever. You're actually inside the game, and I think it's a fascinating idea. We're going to talk about that. Before we do, I want to welcome in and recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct. You know, who likes spending a couple of weekends walking car lots looking for a car? Then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you, and they'll negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. It's the new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Welcome in, Jerry Durand. How are you?
I am well, thank you. I like your intro, and you know, you better have a sense of humor, because if you don't, you're going to go through the most miserable time in your entire life. It's as humbling as you're ever going to get, and it changes your priorities. So you're doing a great job. I appreciate this. This is,
and I forgot to say, Jerry, you're an old radio guy too. I mean, you had a radio show all about investing, and I don't know how long you did that.
We did it for quite some time, many years. It was called Wealth Survival, and I was on one of the
Love the title of that.
Patriot affiliates. What I did was I really didn't talk about investing. Because I was afraid of the word. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we spoke about what was going on in the markets, and it was probably from about 2004 through 2010. In that,
there would have been a lot to talk about.
So much to talk about. I mean, there was the collapse, the 2008 collapse.
Yeah.
And I started out on shortwave radio.
Wow.
I can still see the very first night. I did not know that I piled on live. Okay. And there was nobody to talk to. It was just me on my dining room table with papers laid out all over the place. and speaking about what the topics were. It was all audio,
Yeah.
so nobody could look at me shuffling papers and things like that. But surprisingly, what I come to learn was the people who are out there really are looking for, what's out there.
Yeah.
I mean, are you satisfied with, just like you're talking about the auto purchase? Are
Right.
you really satisfied with this broker? Are you really satisfied with the way this is? Your insurance guy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, give us a call. We'll talk. What we were dealing with at that time was the Forex market, foreign currency exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And those who had various strategies were called commodity trading advisors, CTAs. Each one had a different strategy. Some were pretty far out there. Others were very, conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a matter of finding the guys who were making a success with their strategy.
So were you getting, Jerry, was this almost like a lead source for you of people that trusted you and listened to you and they give you a call and some of them would become clients?
100%.
Yeah.
I didn't have any license. I
Yeah.
acknowledge that. We brought him into a seminar, invited him to a seminar.
Yeah.
And we would spot these around the country, Arizona, Miami area, Minneapolis, Chicago, and bring them in and bring in a variety of different strategies. Had one guy who did nothing but equities,
Mm-hmm.
one guy, there was a variety of different commodity guys who had strategies in the foreign exchange.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of that time for us, a good return in the equities market was like negative 2%. Okay. So they're all losing money.
Yeah.
And that was when I think the collapse of, a whole variety of things
Mm-hmm.
went down about 07, 08.
Mm-hmm.
So currency is basically cash.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of what exchange.
So if you went to different exchanges, you could possibly play the spread. Is that how that would work?
There's a whole variety of strategies that you could have, but yes, that was the key factor.
Yeah.
What we were doing was called the carry trade. Okay. Now you can Google it, look it up, and my belief on a strategy, it works until it don't work.
That's the way all those investments are.
So all these investments are. So the carry trade really took advantage of the spread between the interest rate of the Japanese yen, which was zero at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and the US dollar and the British pound, which was about 5.5, 5.25.
Mm-hmm.
You simply get the investors' dollars, convert them to yen, leverage it,
Mm-hmm.
put it back into the higher interest rate one, and now you're getting multiples of that. And the leverage at that time was all over the board. I mean, all over the board, as high as 400 to 500%, 400 to 500 times. So most of our trades were done in Zurich. If you're going to be in the Forex market in any kind of fashion, it was either New York, London, or Zurich. We chose Zurich because there's some pretty smart guys over there, some solid banks. And
international stuff, right?
Yeah. And I commuted to Zurich, Switzerland every about 3 weeks for a couple of years.
Wow. Well, let's talk about this because we kind of jumped into your training. Take the audience back. Where did you grow up? What was your family like? Did you have siblings? What was that? What was that all going on in your life?
Dirt poor farm boy from southern Minnesota. I have 7 sisters.
Oh my gosh.
No brothers, 3 daughters, no sons, a wife, mother.
So you had 7 sisters. Where did you fall into that ranking?
Number 7. I had one younger.
Wow.
One younger. And as a matter of fact, last year was the first year any significant deaths. We lost 4 brother-in-laws and 2 sisters out of the mix. So it was 2024 was a year of going to celebrations of life, I guess they call them now.
Yeah.
But We didn't have running water till I was 12 years old. I went to a
Wow.
one-room country school,
Yeah.
and I got to tell you, that was the best education you could ever have. You sit there, and it's not like you're in different rooms. It's like one big room.
Yeah.
Everybody has a chore to do.
One teacher.
One teacher.
One teacher. It's like
So,
Little House on the Prairie,
exactly.
or the Waltons.
So the first grade comes up, second grade, third grade, and they're all on the same subject.
Yeah.
Okay, you hear everything. By the time you're in fourth, fifth, sixth grade, if you don't get it, you shouldn't be in school anyway.
Because you've heard it all.
It's been beat to your head. But
Did you know?
Go ahead.
Did you know, Jerry, at that time as a young kid that you were good with numbers?
I didn't realize how good I was with numbers, but throughout, I'm telling you, probably up to the last couple of decades, I could race a calculator on multiplications, and you could give me double digit, triple digit. I just could see it.
Yeah. I think people are born that way.
Yes.
So you get out of that one room schoolhouse and graduate on. Where'd you go?
Went to. I'm from southern Minnesota, so I went to high school there.
Yeah.
Went to college. Went to Arizona State for a short period of time, and then ended up at the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
My major was business, ultimately.
A little different in temperatures there from Arizona to
no question about it. I went to Arizona to get away, and my future wife was wanted to get back home to her family, and so we came back to Minnesota and went to high school.
Okay, so you get out of college. What's Jerry thinking? What's your big plan?
Well, this is a little different than the normal person would do, but I was always into fighting. So
Really?
I fought for the Minneapolis Judo Club, and I trained with the University of Minnesota Wrestlers. And a couple of buddies of mine were working for Vince McMahon Sr. out of the WWF.
Yeah.
So the guy says, hey, why don't you go out and train? Because I was pretty good size. So I went out and trained with Walter Killer Kowalski in Salem, Massachusetts, and went into the professional wrestling arena back in the early 80s.
Oh, my gosh.
I came back to Minneapolis and formed a wrestling school with a guy by the name of Eddie Sharkey, who was recognized as a pretty tough guy. We were partners, and we had a training school. I didn't want to go on the road.
Ventura was the governor there in Minnesota, right?
Well, if you look at the 1981 Minneapolis Star Tribune paper, what happened was baseball was on strike at the time.
Yeah.
So Major League Baseball was on strike. So I had a call from a reporter at the Minneapolis Star Tribune and said, hey, can we do an article on your school? I said, yeah, bring it on. So, we kind of fabricated the school, but that following Sunday, the Minneapolis paper would always come out Saturday night.
Okay.
A friend of mine called me and says, hey, get the paper. So I was on the front page of the sports page. My picture was the whole thing, and it was our school, and the inside was a picture of Jesse Ventura on his back as one of the students.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, he wasn't one of my students. He was one of Eddie Sharkey's students. And that expanded. We trained the Road Warriors. We trained Barry Darsow, Rick Rude. I mean, the school just turned out monstrous talent.
Wow.
But I needed to make a living, and I was making an okay living doing that. And I got into the brokerage business. So I got into the brokerage business in 81 and was very good at it. The difference was it's a work ethic. When you come from, a poor background and you're on a farm, you don't call in sick to the animals and say, I'm not feeding you today, or you're not going to get this. It doesn't happen. So I showed up at work when they opened the doors, and I left when they closed the doors. So I went to the very top of the sales, and how do you understand what to sell? How do you sell a product? Call the competition. Act like you're a buyer. And that's what I did. So these people would try to sell me, and so I'm learning how to sell by doing that, because I know I'm not going to buy from them. But
that's an age-old wisdom thing to teach, because Sam Walton, his best thing that he did all the time was he'd be flying in around looking for places around to put a Walmart, but he'd always stop into Kmart and shop around
Sure,
and
sure,
see what everything was going on,
sure.
what was working, what
You got
wasn't
to see what
working.
everybody else is doing. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, fast forward to that, I got very good at the brokerage business and was able to, because I didn't take any, I could bring in sales guys,
Mm-hmm.
and they honestly they were afraid of me. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to cross my path, so they'd show up for work on time. And I would take a sales force from maybe 4 or 5 guys and blow it up to 180 guys in a short period of time. And the guy who owned the company loved me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got into that brokerage business and learned that. And I learned that was worst thing to work for somebody else is to work for yourself. So you work for myself. Okay. So I
Yeah.
decided to spin off and become my own entrepreneur and create my own business.
And how old would you have been when you did that?
40s.
Okay. So
Probably.
you've done quite a bit as far as building up sales and
Yeah.
working for somebody else. And
Yeah.
so you spun yourself out
Yep.
in your 40s. And then what did you do?
Well, then I went into, I traveled around the country giving various expanding sales forces. I would run ads in various papers like the
And
Wall.
everybody's always wanting sales.
Of course.
Everybody
Of
wants
course.
big sales, wants to
Yep.
know how to do it.
Yep.
What's the secret?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds so easy. It's like
There's
looking at
there's nothing easy about it. I remember when I was a 15-year-old kid and my dad over the summer, he said, Brent, you want to make some money? He said, I'm going to give you, he just gave me these sheets, these like big square sheets, and they had people's phone numbers and their addresses on them.
Yep.
And he said, if you can set appointments for these salespeople, I'll give you some of their commission. I said, well, okay, I'll try that. I mean, I'd never done, but it was cold calling.
Yep.
Maybe some of the best experience I ever had because I had to figure out what worked, you know?
Right.
And one of the crazy things that I found that worked, Jerry, this is just two old sales guys talking to each
Yeah.
other, but I found out that if I apologized to the people first, I said, yeah, this is Brett from such and such funeral home. I got to apologize to you, Jerry. I was supposed to get some information out to you yesterday and just ran out of time. Would be a good time to drop that off to you in the morning or the afternoon.
Yeah.
And what happened is it confused them on the fact of whether they were going to say yes or no, because I was already late. They were already supposed to have gotten the information.
Yeah.
So you start working these word plays out and you find out
Yep.
what works. And, it's
Just
crazy.
repeat it. Yeah.
Just cold calling
Yeah.
and having to figure something out like that. Then you can actually teach that kind of stuff too, but you almost have to figure it out yourself. So you have the confidence to teach it to somebody else. But yeah, it's funny how that all works.
It's difficult to, if somebody has call reluctance,
Yeah.
they're
Most
always
people
getting
do.
ready to get ready to get ready. And it's the guy that just walks in, doesn't know what he's doing, picks up the phone and starts talking to people. That's
Yep.
the guy you want.
Yep.
So, but that's ancient history.
Yeah, it is ancient history. You can't call anybody on the phone.
But it took us to, for sure. It took us to where we are. And you said I was on the radio business. So what I learned was that you can reach a wider audience,
Mm-hmm.
let them qualify themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because the last thing I want to do to somebody is try to convince them of something.
Mm-hmm.
If this isn't for you, let's not do this. Don't
Right.
waste your time, and please don't waste my time. So if this makes sense, go ahead. If not, that's okay too, because there's just too many people out there to try to convince somebody that's not comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm. So you get on the radio. I assume that you're doing pretty well, because I mean, if you built up big sales teams, you would have made money doing that, and then you were able to go out on your own.
We did very well.
So as you got in, as what we talked about in the beginning, you guys started doing the currency stuff. I'm sure you were doing well with that. When did it come into your world, Jerry, that you thought or heard or felt that something might be going on that could be bad?
Well, I didn't until after I was gone. So what happened was we were spilling money. Okay, I mean we were making so much money.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of where you make the money is the spread.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest banks in the world, are at the edge of the cliff. Okay. If those banks go down, we got a problem. Now with cryptocurrency, it's a different story, but back then, the UBSs of the world and the Chases and the Goldman, those are the places where their spreads are the narrowest.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can get closer to them, you get a narrower spread from your bid and ask between the products. And that's what I was going to Zurich, Switzerland for.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was I said that we should acquire a bank in Switzerland. We had that kind of money.
Okay.
And we were getting ready to do it. Now, the most dangerous guys in business to me, because I was probably in my mid 50s then, all right? Most dangerous guys in the world were guys who were in their 30s.
Yeah.
Who had never failed.
Right. They hadn't lost yet.
Hadn't lost yet. And they were invincible.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that to this day. So, unfortunately, my partners, I had two partners who were in their 30s. One was an equities guy, brilliant. He was good at what he did. He was killing it, actually, way better than the negative 2%. He was getting probably a 4 to 5% rate of return.
Okay.
And another guy who was actually a gambler. And if you think about it, the reason he got me into the currency business, I said, why would I go into that? He called me, he says, I need you in this, because he had been one of my sales guys. Mm-hmm. He said, well, if you take all the dollars that are spent in drugs, pornography, and gaming in 1 year, it doesn't equal 1 day in the currency business. I said, you got my attention. Wow. So it's multiple trillions, maybe 5 to 7 trillion back then per day. Mm. And all you needed to do was take a little sliver out of those transactions every day, and you're making huge amounts of money. Mm-hmm. So he wanted to build a casino in Panama, the country of Panama.
Okay.
The equities guy wanted to buy 10% of the Minnesota Wild. And this is all on the documents.
Yeah, I read about it.
So I said, guys, we can't do all three at once, but let's buy the bank first.
Yeah.
So when two 30-year-old guys are so much smarter than a 50-year-old guy, and instead of dividing the pot by 4, let's divide it by 3, they devised the plan to get rid of me.
Okay.
Which they did. And I, quite frankly, wasn't all that upset about it because I knew what to do now. Mm-hmm. Okay, I get it. You guys can get rid of me. But there was several $1 million that they owed me, which I eventually never got. So I left the company with a fight. I said, you owe me. I'm back and forth. We're arguing about what they owe me.
Right.
And those were some of the allegations that the prosecutor said that I had never left because I was arguing for my piece of the pie. Well, that means you were still involved in getting. So that's how my aiding and abetting got it. But what happened was I parted company in June of 2008, never turned back, never. They didn't start to really do an embezzlement for about 4 to 6 months. So the embezzlement occurred after I left. But that doesn't matter, right?
No, because you got all swiped up in that.
Well, what happened was the guys who were doing the embezzling, one was the government's key witness and another was an unindicted co-conspirator. Mm-hmm. I've got my suspicions as to what happened because we're the second largest financial crime in the state of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. There's $250 million. And it's still not to this day found. So, it just happens to coincide with when the early days of cryptocurrency came about. And one of the guys was an absolute brilliant fellow in the middle of Zurich, Switzerland, who understood that type of thing. So I don't want to go down any rabbit hole there, but I'll leave that dangling part.
That's a deep, dark hole there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And who's all involved,
Jerry,
right?
Yeah. And so Jerry, so you leave, this comes up. How are you notified that you're on the radar?
Well, I didn't think I was. So one of the guys, I had some clients. I said, I won't touch these clients for a year. I'll leave them alone. Pay me $1 million because they owed me far more than that. So they agreed, but I never got the $1 million. I got about half of it.
Okay.
So the clients then said, "Hey, your year's up. Can we come with you and deal with you?" I said, "Sure." He wouldn't give them their money, wouldn't release their money. So one of them said, "Okay, we'll just file a lawsuit or call the state."
Mm-hmm.
And that's when everything happened.
That's what raised the red flag. I think that was the 7 or 9 people that wanted their money back or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
how dumb
Yeah.
are you to not give these people their money back just because you've got a vendetta against me?
So that's when the digging started, and everything goes. So you get pulled into this, and did they come to you and want you to cooperate, or was it, or did they always have you just in the thick of the conspiracy? And what were you thinking as far as, because you actually went to trial, which somebody's got to have elephant sized balls to do that, because there's only 97% of the people that get indicted plea bargain. So walk us through that. What was going through your mind as you were going through that?
So I only learned that statistic about 2 days before I finished the trial. Anyhow, so better late than I guess. No.
Right.
So this one fellow who threw me under the bus cut a deal for 25 years.
Okay.
And I thought, okay,
That was the top guy, Cook. Yeah.
So I thought, okay, it's over with. This happened. I believe he went down
2010, I think.
something like that. And really, he was still kind of battling with the case. He was going in and out of court, and he showed what is it, contempt, and they got him for that. They locked him up, and he never got out.
Mm-hmm.
So he got the 25-year deal. I thought it's over with. I figured that's too bad. Dummy.
Top guy. That's who they were after.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, one morning, my house was surrounded with cop cars. I mean, surrounded. There was like 13 of them. And all of a sudden, I heard this boom, boom, boom. The windows were the house was shaking. My wife says, there's police all over the house. Want to come in? I says, what? And you think right away, now, 8 o'clock in the morning, something happened. Somebody was in a car accident, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So I walked outside. They threw me down on the steps, put me behind handcuffs on, and one of the fed agents is screaming in my face, "You know what this is about? You know what this is about?" Screaming in my face. Mm-hmm. And no. He says, "It's about Trevor Cook." I thought, is he dead? I didn't know what to say. Mm-hmm. And so that's when it began.
Wow.
And they brought me into the house. Warrants. The place was swarming like with everybody, and they separated, brought my wife out back. We were still in our pajamas.
Oh yeah, it's early in the morning. Yeah.
She was out in the back. I was in the front with the handcuffs on, and just kept grilling me. I had my taxes spread out all over the table. I was getting ready to do my taxes, or I was doing my taxes. Mm-hmm. And they scraped everything together, and just, you can't make head or tail of what they do. And I said, well, am I under arrest? And they would never answer the question. So I was not under arrest. I'm free to go. Hard to go when you got handcuffs behind your back and you got nothing on. You got a pair of shorts. Yeah. And so I said, so can we leave? And so I said, well, I'm going to leave then. Let me go. And me and my wife finally got to leave. And I said, will you at least call me when you're done here? Mm-hmm. Never did that. I came back. The house was wide open, stuff all over the place. And
wow.
I got on with an attorney, and he, directed me. He says, we don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea. So I had no clue. Then they come back a couple, 2-3 days later, these two tough guy fat agents. Mm-hmm. You get an attorney, and he can get rid of a lot of these charges for you, and we can drop them down. They're really nice guys. No, we cut a deal. It's like, what? I says, cut a deal? I says, no, I ain't cut no deal with you guys. And because I didn't know, I was ignorant. You hear all these stupid things like it only takes one juror and innocent till proven guilty, and you're going to get a fair trial. That is completely false.
All the
There,
stuff you see on
it
TVs
just,
and
yeah, and
movies.
it's
Yeah.
these TV things. Come on, that's just absolute joke.
So what
So
in the world, Jerry, were you thinking? Because I mean, this is something like you're living your life, and all of a sudden they invade your home. Your wife, I mean, is a part of this because they've invaded her world. And these guys come back to you and say, "Hey, we'll cut you." What's going through your mind?
that's when I said the stress level went through the roof, where just the ability to think clearly
Yeah,
didn't exist
yeah,
anymore. The emotion was like, what is going on?
yeah.
It's, you've been better off being told that you've got 6 months to live because you got some strange disease. I mean, it's almost in the same
Ugh.
category. I never expected to go to prison.
How long did this process last from the time that you got into being invaded in your house to you being at trial?
2 years.
Okay,
It
there's two
was May
years.
of 2010.
Okay.
I went to trial June. No, I went to trial April of 2012.
Okay, so I want to take a break there because when we get back, I want to talk about what it was like because we don't have too many people on here very often that actually go to trial. So I want us to walk through that.
The smart ones.
Okay, so I know a lot of people don't like how they show up online, and a lot of people think there's no hope when it comes to manage your reputation on Google or online. Well, there's hope out there. It's called Discoverability Company, and they can help you. Whether you're building a reputation from scratch, repairing your search results after a negative news story, Discoverability can also help you how you're portrayed on the popular AI services like ChatGPT. To learn more, visit discoverability.co. They're even launching a do-it-yourself SEO option, a course for individuals who want to take on their search results on their own budget and speed. Listeners of Nightmare Success can take $100 off the DIY SEO course with coupon code Nightmare Success. And I just want to say that Nightmare Success podcast is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group, the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I can tell you this is a bunch of people who can help each other through the criminal justice journey for free. Whether you're just starting your journey or you've made it through to the other side, this is great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to prisonist.org. That's prisonist.org. Okay, so Jerry, you have 2 years of this.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with your attorney? Is it good, bad?
I was appointed an attorney
Okay.
because what they do is they freeze up all your money. You
Yep.
now have no money.
Right. And now you got to
They-
fight. You got to fight. But one of my guys that was on here the first season, he said he was in the mortgage business. He said, "Oh yeah, you could go to trial with him," but he said that's like your beer softball league going to play the L.A. Dodgers. You could play them, that's what you're doing. So they froze everything, and now you've got to go to war
Well,
with
not only that, they go rip your bank accounts out, and I had some cash in my safety
yeah,
deposit box. That's gone. They
yeah,
take everything.
yeah.
So
And now you get to fight them.
now you get to fight them. So I was appointed an attorney, and he was well renowned. I mean, I got nothing bad against him. I can say his name, Brian Toder. Good attorney, good guy.
Yeah,
But if you look at the reality of it, this guy is getting paid certainly not his going rate because
right.
he was in the super attorney category and
Yep.
good criminal attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're, my suspicion, if you're somebody like him and you're used to charging back then $400 to $500 an hour, and they're only paying you $250, am I keeping tabs of his hours? I don't think so. So if he's going to turn in, he does 45 minutes with me and he turns in 2 hours. I mean,
How do you know?
how do you know? And I don't care.
Right.
Doesn't matter to
You
me.
just want good defense.
I just want to get defense. I like
Yeah.
the guy.
Yeah.
So we're having a back and forth, back and forth. Now, does he have an incentive to end this right away by telling me we better cut a deal? I don't think so. You have that go on for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You got all the publicity.
Yeah.
I mean, the publicity
big
was
case,
massive.
right.
I was in the newspaper. Our lives were threatened. We had to have guards there all the time. It was not pleasant at all. And I get calls from people that just, who are you?
Yeah.
There was a lady. I mean, all the depositions I'm reading, she just said this guy's pure scum. I'd never met her in my life. I don't know who she was or anything. Um, the
Well,
government.
and I think it's, when you got somebody that's going to trial, the jury pool is tainted because of these massive news stories that have one strong narrative because it's being fed through the Justice Department, the Attorney General's USA U.S. Attorney. So you've got that happening. You can't say anything because there's no one that wants the media has their narrative and they're going with it. Uh, it only helps the U.S. Attorney if you decide that you're going to go to trial. So again, we were talking about the deck being stacked against you with no money, your accounts frozen, your money taken out. And then on top of that, you've got the media feeding the U.S. Attorney's story to everybody that's going to be your jury pool.
Well, you talk about the jury pool. That's one thing. How they select it. That again is just it's a circus act. Okay, all these legal nuances, all these protocols. Come on, they're worthless. There's nothing that's going to serve justice.
Right.
The mission for them was to convict.
Right.
If there was justice, it was a coincidence or it happened totally by mistake. So this reporter who sat in the front row every day, and it was his narrative, and I would listen to what was said in the courtroom, and what he reported were just not exactly the same thing. He would meet with the jurors at lunch. They took a picture together, a couple of group
Wow.
photos.
Wow.
The
Were you the only one that went to trial?
There was three of us.
Oh, all three of you went to trial.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the other two guys that I went to trial with, I mean, there's no way you could separate them. That would have been everybody's that was in there. The other attorneys said, if they separate me out, they're not going to convict me because there just wasn't enough stuff. It was just really petty that they got me on.
Mm-hmm.
So the jury actually said to this reporter, we knew these guys were guilty before they ever presented their defense. Now,
Wow.
think about that.
Wow.
So that's a fair trial?
Yeah.
So when I get
How long did this trial go?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay.
6 weeks. April, started early April and ended June 12th.
Was there a time in the trial that you felt like that maybe things were going your way?
Yes.
Ever? Yeah.
Yes, because the one of my co-defendants, Jason Beckman, he testified. He did a smashing job.
Okay.
And I don't think this guy got 30 years. I don't think he was guilty.
Wow.
There was another guy, Pat Kiley, who was 10, 15 years older than me. The guy was dithering. I mean, he made Joe Biden look adept. Okay.
Yeah.
So Pat was he had a colostomy bag on. You know, what do you want to put this guy away for?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did people lose money? Yes. Who took it? These two guys over here, maybe this one.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to convict us because you cut a deal with this guy to give him 5 years or less.
Mm-hmm.
That's the system. That's the pathetic nature of the system. And you don't know it until you get in it.
No, you don't. And I'm curious because you went to trial that day that the jury came back. They came in, they sat down, and then I believe the way that they do it is they hand it over to the bailiff. Bailiff hands it to the judge. What goes through someone's mind when that moment happens?
One of the jurors, a lady probably in her 30s, was sobbing.
Okay.
It's very telling.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
The attorney for the other guy, or Jason Beckman, said to me, he says, he said, hang in there, be strong. They're going to get you for taxes. He said, but I don't think they're going to get you for anything else. He said, so there's life after.
Okay.
So I'm like, you know what? When somebody tells me, cut a deal for this or this, it's just that's not my nature.
No.
It's not the way I was raised. Mm-hmm. If the consequences are whatever, and you don't really think about it. You cannot imagine that you're going to get convicted.
It could be that bad, right?
Yeah. So, what was going through my head? It was pretty,
Blur.
talk about out of body. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you are for sure.
Yeah.
And what happened was once the trial ended,
Mm-hmm.
then we're told we got to be within an hour's reach of the courthouse at any given time. So even though I lived about an hour away, I had no slack, no leeway at all. Um, so I'm walking around the city with the suit on, getting ready and looking at that trolley going by or whatever it was, the Amtrak, thinking, well, should I step in front of that or not? You just, so
Yeah.
many
So
stupid
many things
things
go through your mind.
go
Yeah.
your mind. And all of a sudden, I get a call from my attorney. They've reached the verdict. Okay, it's about 9:30 in the morning
Okay.
on a Tuesday morning. So you don't forget that. There's things you don't forget.
They read off the guilty, and how long do you have to wait, or did they remand you immediately?
Immediately.
Oh man. Okay.
If
So
you
you're
look at
immediately
my
taken into custody.
if you look at my interview on Prison Land,
Mm-hmm.
I said that the walls of the court. I mean, it was a fiasco. They had so many people there. They had to have a closed circuit second courtroom for the bodies that watched this. Okay,
Wow.
the walls of the courtroom oozed with federal agents, and I couldn't give you any other word to describe it but that. But it's just like they just come out of the walls. It was lined up, and they're all like you'd think they were going to war. Here, there's
Sounds like a
three of us
nightmare.
guys sitting here. Pat Kiley is harmless. Anybody could easily guide him into the other guy, Jason Beckman. Okay, he's maybe a stronger kid. And me, we didn't need 70 people
Mm-hmm.
to take us into custody and stand there like they're a bunch of. I mean, they. That's what it was, and it was very. I stood up. I started to take some stuff off, throw it in my bag, my watch, some belt, my tie. I said, "Here's a souvenir to my attorney." I'll give him the tie, and once you walk through, you got this beautiful, dark paneled woodwork courtroom, and you step into that door, you are in a cesspool of prison. It's iron, it's concrete, it's just the complete opposite of what you think it is. All those federal buildings is a prison.
Mm-hmm.
It's all they are.
So how long did you have to wait after you were arrested to find out how long you were going to be sentenced?
January 3rd.
Wow.
6 months.
So
I'm in
you were in
county
jail for 6 months, which is the worst. I mean, we
by
all know
far the
that.
worst. They have ice there. They have everything there,
Yeah.
and there was far more violence. I was in a race riot, and it was on TV.
I've talked to so many people, that have had that type of situation that you have, and I've had people that were remanded before that they were working on their trial, and they took them in to try to get them to plea with them.
Sure.
And it worked, because the one guy that I was with at Leavenworth, he was in for 16 months, and
County jail.
Yeah, and hadn't been outside. They said that if he didn't do some type of plea bargain, they were going to possibly they were going to target his wife, target his son. So he finally gave in. And he ended up with a 7-year deal off his plea. But there's so many ways that they use jail. But once you handled it that's kind of like the worst possible purgatory, because you know that you've been found guilty. You don't know how long you've got, but you're in the worst possible place to wait.
Without question. The first few nights they put you in, what I come to learn was not a dry room, but kind of like that, where they think maybe this guy's going to commit suicide, so he's right here under the watch. And I thought, I ain't killing myself.
Not after all this.
Think of what you think of me if you want, but I ain't killing myself. Yeah. So I adapted. There was a guy by the name of shouldn't say his name, but anyway, he was in there and he was dying of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Italian guy from New York, and we're playing. I'm playing cards, that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, you can tell your wife, he said, it takes typically about 16 weeks for the average person to assimilate with the prison system. He said, tell her you did it in booking. And I said, okay. He says, because, I'm just going to do what I have to do and man up to do what I have to do.
How was your wife?
Well, she was surprisingly pretty damn strong, because I learned that when they had her in the back of the house and I had in the front of the house,
Yeah.
she wouldn't even tell him her name. She didn't
Wow.
give him nothing.
I love that.
And I said, that's good. That's good.
Uh-huh.
So, it was tough. I mean, her mother needed in-home care. So fortunately, she went up and took that role, and they lived together. So she was, she did okay. Yeah. I mean, what happened was I was in Milan, Michigan, and that's where I was in the same 8x10 with Dave Grosky for 3 or 4 years.
Well, I'm curious, like when you were brought back and you were told that you were going to have 240 months.
I didn't know that.
20 years. I know, but you find this out. What? I mean, that's 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? So walk me through that whole thing. How did that feel? What was it like? To be told you had that much time, thinking that you might have an opportunity to win this case.
Yeah. I'm thinking I might get 10 or 12.
Okay.
You're always,
which is a lot of time.
Optimistic, but it's not 40. So, again, the points they give you, they score these points.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just looking at some guys who were on these most recent that's going on right now. Murdered somebody. I mean, viciously killed a couple people. And they're looking at 15 years. It's like, what is it? How do you do that?
Yeah.
So they were proposing 360 to life for me. Okay. So, you don't know. So that period of time in county jail, you don't know. So when I went there,
and living with the unknown's the worst.
Oh my God. So when I got 240 months, what happened was they sentenced the guy first. They did it alphabetically.
Okay.
And the prosecutor and the judge just hated this guy because he wasn't going to roll over for anybody either. And he really, I thought he did a masterful job when he testified and he told the truth. Mm-hmm. But the jury, was so tainted against him. There was no, anyway, he got 360. We didn't cross paths, but he went into the cell and I'm going out. Now we're in our orange, right, to get sentenced. Mm-hmm. He said, I purposely didn't tell you how much time I got because I didn't want you to get. So you go out there and I was prepared to say nothing. I didn't know that you're supposed to talk about, Mm-hmm. So I winged it. And, obviously, I didn't do very good, but when they said 240 months, it was like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Okay. So I went back and we stayed there in that place for, oh my God, it was hours,
When you got the 240 months, how old would you have been? 60.
80. I went in when I was just 60.
60.
Then 80. Yeah.
Wow. So, how soon from that moment are you finding yourself at the prison that you are supposed to be at?
Another 3 months.
Wow.
End of March.
Wow.
I got called and, they pack your stuff. That's it. Okay. Well, what do you got? You got nothing anyway. So you are, you're shackled up. I mean, you see these guys in the movies that are shackled. No, that's not how you're shackled. They're around the waist, your hands. And because I was such a high profile guy,
Yeah.
ever heard of the black box?
Yeah, that's where you can't move at all with
You got the
black box on. Yeah.
black box on you. So I got that luxury, and you're carted to a bus. I'm thinking, okay, God, I might be going to Rochester. No way. So I get sent down, and everybody kind of gets dropped off here and here and here. So we're going to the Rochester airport. And from there, you go to Oklahoma, which is
Transfer
like
center.
the biggest depot. It's a monstrous. It's at the end of the airport in Oklahoma City, and it's like big silos, gigantic silos. You pull right in, get off the plane, got your conveyor belt, throw this piece of clothes, this piece of clothes, this piece of clothes. Next thing you know, you're standing there naked, and then you get these boxers and this and this and this, and you get this. So honestly, after what I had been through, this is like, okay, we're going somewhere. We can actually,
Yeah.
you can make a life or whatever. And we actually had food. I mean, I had a piece of chicken. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then these guys come around you and, hey, we'll take care of this and do that. And he says, you go talk to the COs, make sure somebody goes with you because you don't want to be talking like you're ratting them out. So you learn real quick what the deal is. And you need some coffee, you need some. So people, I tell you what, I saw a tremendous amount of kindness by prisoners, inmates, whatever you want to call them, that just doesn't exist out in the real world today. Where
Big shocker, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Unbelievable shocker how these guys come around. You need this, you need that. I got this for you. Hey, here's the deal. We'll take you. And it was amazing. So then, I'm told, have your paperwork. So you do this. And we're in Oklahoma. I don't even remember how long I was there. I really don't. But I do know when we first got off the plane in Michigan, I think it was late March or early April.
Okay.
We had T-shirts on. It's cold. We're we're shivering violently. There's the cops are standing there in their warm jackets. They're just laughing at us.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, shaking so bad that you could, just think that's funny. And you just dehumanize to the point where, okay, I get it. I see who it is.
Just like cattle.
I don't know if they would do that to cattle.
Yeah.
They would probably try to run him inside somewhere.
So you get to the prison. Are you in a medium or a low?
Okay, so Milan used to be a medium.
Okay.
But they had just converted it to a low, and all they really did was call it something else.
Okay.
So all the guys there said, there's no change that has been made, but it's now a low. That's why you can go here. Okay, so here I am. And it's some old, nasty brick buildings. Well, now there was 3 or 4 outside units that were brand new.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was just identifying with you because you're talking about the old nasty brick buildings like Leavenworth, just awful.
Yeah.
All right. So you get in there, you've just been sentenced to 20 years in prison, Jerry. How are you thinking? What's your mind like walking into this place thinking 20 years, I'm in a shithole. I made it through county for a long time. Now I'm finally at a place I can at least figure out how to live. How are you thinking about how you're going to adapt to your world in there?
So there's 2 things that go on in your mind, at least mine. You always think you got an appeal. You think that's really valid.
Yeah, because you went to trial.
I got an appeal. And, maybe something, because there's always hope.
Yep.
And I met a couple of guys, and surprisingly, they look at you, and a big time financial crime is kind of looked up to, as opposed to, if you're some other crimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they look up to you like, where's the money?
Mhm.
Because everybody knows about you before you get there.
Oh yeah.
They
Oh
know
yeah.
what's cooking. They know who you are and what's going on. And did you
Hmm.
do this? Are you a rat or whatever?
Yeah.
So
Inmate.com.
I'm kind of yes, yes. Some of the best, it's better than the U.S. Post Office. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah. So I was looked up to some degree. I didn't realize it at the time.
Mhm.
And everybody's giving me advice. And this one guy comes up and he says, here's the deal. He says, you can preserve yourself in prison. He says, don't do anything stupid. He
Mhm.
says, you can sleep. You got no real pressures. Eat correctly. Don't eat a lot of junk. And
Mhm.
work out a lot.
Mhm.
Fuel your mind.
Yeah.
It's physical, mental, and spiritual. And you
Good
better do
advice.
all three. Okay? You better do all three. And I did.
Mhm.
I probably read 400 books
Yeah.
of everything. You name it, I read it. I try to pick up some books at the library, and I'm here. Oh, wait a minute! I read this. I read. So,
Yeah.
and all of them, you don't want to get a little book. You want to get a big,
You
thick
want to get
book.
a big, thick book. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
I was reading those Greg Iles books that were like 700, 800 pages. That was uh, one of my favorite authors. There it is.
This guy
Yeah.
here, his
Yeah.
books. All right.
Yeah.
So I've got maybe 4 or 5 of his, and
But you're right. You wanted to get into a big, thick book. Yeah.
you want to get something that's going to cause you to learn
Think.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an
Um,
escape.
Total escape.
Yeah.
One of the tricks that I was told by a bunch of, I guess, bikers when I first got to county was sensory overload,
Mhm.
loud noise. Do this. Just keep yourself. Just beat yourself with whatever you can beat yourself with, and just don't think.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of tricks, and I started to apply them, and they work.
Did they make you work at that prison? Was that a
Yes,
work? Yep.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Um, so this group ran this, and this group ran this, and this group ran this. So I got yard work,
Not bad.
picking up trash.
Yeah.
It was a big compound,
Hmm.
and
Outside.
I go outside all the time. I worked
Hmm.
out a lot,
Hmm.
and I stayed in very good shape. I'm in, you know, with the ab roller, let's say the ab wheel.
Hmm.
When I ultimately, just before I got out, I was doing reps at 25. So I'd end up doing 40 of those.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Oh no, that's not easy.
Not
I I think it's so funny how you do certain things with the pitch. Like, um, I got into doing pull ups, and I hadn't probably done a pull up since I was like in junior high. Started doing four.
Yeah.
Worked myself up to
Yep.
4 sets of 10, and that
That's
was a
really
whole.
good.
But that's like a whole different exercise that you
Yeah.
would never think that you
Yeah.
would do.
Yeah.
But I agree, working out, reading books, and really getting into. I mean, when I was in, I got down to my high school weight. I mean, I lost 35 pounds, and it wasn't very hard to lose either. I mean,
Not
it
at
was
all.
it
Not
just
at all.
fell off. Kind
Yep.
of falls off like your freedom, but
Yep.
it's maybe it does preserve some of your life. I don't know, but as you're walking through that, are you filing appeals, Jerry? You're
Absolutely.
doing your hope of
Yep.
this and that. Okay. What about
So,
the outside world? Are you staying connected to the outside world?
I called my wife. I had called my daughters on a regular basis. I had a handful of friends. Then you get the access to an email,
Hmm.
which is not easy.
No.
My sisters, I would get visits.
Yeah.
And to me, visits became more stressful than beneficial. I didn't like them. You know,
Were they stressful to you because it puts you too close to the outside world?
I wouldn't say that so much. It's that what you put your family through,
Hmm. It's not easy.
what you put your visitors through
It's
was
hard.
very. I did not like that at all
Hmm. Yeah.
because you're sitting in there with just this, and a lot of some
And
good
it's
guys.
not, but it's not even easy though. It's not even
No,
easy to get through. A
No.
lot of times you get turned away. My family got turned away 3 times on
Yeah.
ridiculous things, but um, so you did have that uh, opening to the outside world, and your wife talking to her on the phone, and your visits, and
Yes.
um, when you started not getting what you wanted on your appeals, how did you handle that?
So again, I'm in the cell with an attorney, right?
Okay.
Who gets it.
Mhm.
And Dave Grosky is somebody who can read 50 pages and it's like he just flashes through them. And it's like, dude, you didn't read that. But he'll quote back to you pretty much everything in there from where it is.
Very
So,
smart guy.
very smart guy. And he's got some unique characteristics. The guy just, so he filed the appeal. Or
Okay.
no, he helped me file my appeal with my attorney, and we thought we had it because they had so many. I can't even recall what the errors were, but everything
Okay.
gets denied. Okay, everything gets denied, and that was a big letdown.
Mm.
And then your next step was your 2255, and that is where I was given all this information about the plea bargains. And I said, I didn't give any plea bargains.
Mm-hmm.
And my attorney says, yeah, you got 4 plea bargains. I says, no, I didn't. I thought, you liar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my state of mind with what was going on, possibly, but I got to tell you, I would sit in an office and they give you from deposition reams of paper. Okay, and let's
Yeah.
say that the paper stack is maybe 4 feet high,
Mm-hmm.
single sheets. And there's maybe 3 sheets in there that are pertinent to what would help you, but
Mm-hmm.
then they just duplicate everything, everything, everything. So you got to go through it and try to
Yeah.
find that. And
Like a
that's
needle in a
how
haystack.
dirty they are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the prosecutor. And to get a fair trial, there's no such thing. They have unlimited resources.
Right.
The Fed agent who he sat through the whole trial and then he testifies. Well, they don't let anybody else do that. And if you're going to testify, you don't see what everybody else is saying. So he's got an advantage. He can come in and refute this and refute that. And they ask him all the softball questions. And um, so, I didn't get the 2255. Judge denied that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're thinking, okay, well, I got this much time. I got this much time in. Maybe this is going to happen. Well, then there was what was the First Step Act?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now you got
That
all these
happened in
computations.
17 or 18. And I would say when you mentioned David um, Grosky, he was episode 145. If those listening in here want to check
Yeah.
that out. So yeah, so the First Step Act. Yeah, what was the rumor mill in the prison about the First Step Act?
Well, it was all over the board. First of all, and the first information you get from everybody is so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're already giving everybody a free pass and we're getting pardons and all this.
Right,
Well,
right,
no,
right.
no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. I think you misread something. So what happens is that there was a lot of classes you take, and
Yeah.
you can get points off or something, which would change your.
But what
The,
we heard from the outside is that they had a hard time even getting that staffed up to where those were even classes you could take. So the BOP moved like at a snail's pace to even get the thing implemented, and they had to push them from the Justice Department for the BOP to do what was supposed to be implemented for the First Step Act. Because it wasn't, there was a little bit of a conflict of
it's a
interest of the whole
fact,
thing. Yeah.
absolutely, absolute a fact, because the prison system is a factory.
Mm-hmm.
We're the widgets,
Workers. Yeah.
okay, and prisoners do run the inmate or
Right.
run the prison.
Right. They do everything.
They do everything.
Right.
So there's no there's just no.
I mean, the CEOs count. They do count
That's
time.
it. That's it. That's it. Um,
So, Jerry,
yes, sir.
when when that's because you're talking about the First Step Act, and so when the First Step Act, you realize it's not really going to happen the way that everybody thinks it's going to happen. You're about 2 or 3 years away from COVID, and I always wonder, like when I always think that being in prison and having something like COVID happen would have to be the worst time ever to be in prison because it's very easy for them to just shut everything down, lock it down, tell everybody there's no visits, no phone privileges, can't go outside. Did all that happen?
So you weren't in there during prison.
No, I left in 2016.
Okay, so I was trying to get closer to home,
Mm-hmm.
which was Rochester.
Okay.
And I met with the counselor, and she says, "You're not going to get this." She says, "You're never going to get this."
Mm-hmm.
I got it. So there's a lot of serendipity or whatever that happened in my situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting transferred, and we're talking about now it's spring of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at that same time, I hadn't got a hold of my wife much at all for the first third of the year,
Okay.
January, February, March, and she finally got a hold of her in April, and she's on the verge of crying, and she says, "I've just been diagnosed with stage 4 liver and pancreas cancer," and
Oh
then she
man,
broke
Jerry.
down.
Oh boy.
So, and then sitting on these phone booths that are like half booths, and you got
Mm-hmm.
people all around you, and you got this so much time to be on there, and it's it's a tough, how do you take that call? And I know I'm going to get transferred now. I know I'm going to go to Rochester, and it's a matter of now what happens next.
And you're about 7 or 8 years in at this point and get that phone call.
I am about that right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Man, I just can't imagine getting that kind of news in prison. I saw a couple of people that did. I saw a guy that lost his son, and he just turned into a shell of himself. But uh, what happened with her next?
So I get transferred.
Okay.
I get to go back to Oklahoma.
Okay.
The funny part of the story is that, I'm ready to go. I'd packed out, and it was supposed to be like a couple of days. Well, it's 2 weeks. So now I got nothing. Everything's packed. And this is when guys stepped up, and they're not going to get it back. They give me this, they give me that, coffee, whatever the case may be. So I remember getting on that bus, and there was a couple of COs that were really nasty. But
Mm-hmm.
to so we leave, and we go out to the bus, and we're all sitting on the bus, and I'm ready to go. I mean, I'm happy. Okay, I'm
Oh
not.
yeah.
And this CEO put on some, and I'm not a country western fan at all, so I don't even know the name of this song, but he cranked it up so that you couldn't hear yourself think, and he had it blasted, and I'm looking at these guys all pissed off about it, and I'm like, yeah, good for you. It was entertainment to me
Yeah.
because I'm going home, and it was like spit, chew, chew. I don't know the. I mean, I remember those words to the
Yeah.
song. It was,
Yeah.
and he just cranked it up, and it's like, okay, this is, I'm getting out of here, and went to, get at the airplane, and getting your shackled. I mean,
To
tight,
travel, shackled all up again.
shackled
Yep.
all up. You get a bag of. You've gone to Oklahoma?
No, I haven't gone to Oklahoma. I got shackled to go to a civil trial in St. Louis when I was at Leavenworth, and I went to the county jail for 7
So
days.
you know how they feed you on the plane, right? A bag of water.
Nice.
You got to chew it open with your teeth, and it's just a bag of water. And maybe a peanut butter sandwich that you're smart not to eat anything or
Right.
drink anything
Right.
because you're not going to want to go back there. Everybody. So I got the trip to Oklahoma, and all of a sudden, plane lands, and they call 6 or 7 guys off the plane right now, and I'm one of them.
Okay.
So it's there's one crazy white guy, me, and the rest are all cartel guys.
Okay.
I mean, cartel leaders. So, who are you going to ask a question to? Because they're not going to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And we get down, going a little bit, and we're the first off and the first ones to get taken care of. And finally, the crazy guy says, "Hey, why are we going into the hole?"
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? Yeah, we're going to the hole. Why? That's why they're doing it. And at that point, it's like, okay, I don't even care. As long as you guys don't take me out and shoot me, I know where I'm going. I can deal with anything. You don't know how long you're going to be there. You can kind of see outside, but there's like a big silo, maybe 7, 8, 10 floors. I don't know how many. It holds maybe 2,000-3,000 people at any given time.
That's a lot.
And so I think I was there about a week. Zero communication. You can write letters, but who remembers addresses? You always had everything. You print your label. So I don't know whose address. You can't make any phone calls. That doesn't exist. So now my wife is dying, and I have no information. And it's, this guy would leave, and another guy would come in, and I was alone I probably was there maybe 10 days.
Wow.
Something like that.
Wow.
And
No
a lot
communication.
of it, no communication. A lot of it alone, and you learn things. I'm looking out in the morning, and I see that they put these little stickers on the door, and those are the guys that are going. So I look out every morning to see my sticker.
You've got a sticker.
Yes, I got my sticker. I'm going out of here, and so then I'm taken out, and they have what's called a toolbox. You know what that is?
Mm-mm.
Toolbox is a giant room, holds about 200 guys, has one stainless steel toilet in the corner, and the walls are like the inside of a toolbox. So the noise is just unbelievable, okay? So me and the cartel boys are in one cell, one cool box that holds 200 guys all by ourselves. And then you got 200 guys across that can see you, and it's like they look at like, who's this guy?
Yeah, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Right.
So that was a different experience, and that was my pre-trip to Rochester, Minnesota.
So you get to Rochester, and all this is going on with your wife. How are you able to stay in touch with her?
And wasn't.
I mean, once you get to Rochester, you're there. But I mean, when somebody's sick, it's not like you get extra minutes or anything to talk to her, I guess. I mean, how does that work?
No, you get the same amount of minutes.
Same thing
as anybody else.
300 minutes a month.
300 minutes. And
10 minutes a day if you take it day to day.
You can get as many as you want per day, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying if you want to make it to the end of the month.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you got to think the calls are like 15 minutes, maybe maximum.
Yeah.
And you're not, when you're cut off, it's done.
Right. It's over. Boom.
There's no leeway on there. So I find out she's doing good. One of my daughters took her in and was trying to, they just can't envision that mom's dying.
Yeah.
So we're going to do this. We're going to do that. And she lasted until November of that year. And I called, and I finally got through to one of my daughters, and I was able to speak with my wife. She couldn't talk back. And I learned that
devastating.
Just after I hung up, she probably passed away 10 minutes later.
Were you able to furlough to the funeral?
Zero. No. They wanted like $30,000 per cop for me to go to the funeral, and said, come on, you know how much money you took away from me. I have nothing.
Right.
My son-in-law, now I knew she died because I called my sister, who was on the way to visit, She says, I suppose you know that your wife passed, or Barb passed. I says, no, I didn't know until you just told me.
Mm.
So this was like a Friday, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
My son-in-law called, talked to my counselor, told her. They come to me Monday afternoon and said, we'd like to bring you into this room, talk to you. You know, your wife passed away. Well, thanks for telling me, guys. You know, that's all. They have no, there is no compassion. We are, inmates are the lowest form,
Yeah.
you know, of, and, you know, really the reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because of my experience
As an inmate.
as an inmate.
Yeah. Well, and I want to get into this prison land thing. Before we do, I just wanted to, that idea of COVID and how you were able to get out of prison. Can you walk us through that real quick, Jerry?
I'll fast forward you to that. So all of a sudden when COVID hit, I mean, the prison system freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
Lockdown. Everybody's wearing a mask and they're doing all this kind of stuff. When you were in your cell, you could go out. I mean, you couldn't go out in the yard. You could, you know, they just had it like it was nuclear war. You know,
Yeah.
you look back on it, it was probably one of the stupidest things they did.
Oh yeah.
However, so we'll fast forward to June and understand we're right at the Mayo Clinic. So if you got something wrong, they take you to Mayo Clinic.
Okay.
Couldn't have gotten better. All right.
Right.
So June of 2020, I'm diagnosed with prostate cancer. Okay. Okay, so now I got to do the biopsy and all this sort of stuff, but they don't rush anything.
Mm-hmm.
October, I'm diagnosed with shingles, which is severe.
Really painful. Yeah.
Well, it was on the optic nerve, so it's not like a rash or something. It hit the optic nerve on the left side, and it goes one side or the other. So I lost my vision 4 times. So again, because I'm at the Mayo Clinic, I got the best doctors, the drops, everything. So I'm taking care of myself. And then we'll fast forward to January, and I'm diagnosed with COVID. So now I got, the trifecta. I figure I'm dying anyway, right? Yep. After my attorney found out my wife died, he contacted me and he says, look, I'd be happy to, for free, I'll do your compassionate release. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And believe me, I'm grateful to this day for that. Mm-hmm. Again, he's a smart guy. So it doesn't take, 2 weeks to do a compassionate release. It takes months because you've got to go through everything, all the forms and the fight back and forth, and the prosecutor doesn't want this in, and the prosecutor. So, why I don't know, because the prosecutor also was discovered that he had prostate cancer. So what happens is, what happened was, we filed this, get all the documents ready. We're ready to go. February rolls around. I said, you ready to file? What he was waiting for was my letter to the judge had to be very from the heart. Mm-hmm. And so I spent some time and I wrote what I thought was, here's my plea. He said, we're ready to file. It was February 5th. It was a Friday. And I says, now what? He says, we wait. He said, it could take months. He said, they never have to respond if they don't want to.
Okay.
1 week later, never forget, 12th of February, I got this email from my attorney in bold letters, we won, exclamation points.
Wow.
I still get shivers to this day when I think about it, I get emotional. So February happens to have a President's Day, right? So the message came through on Friday. Monday was a President's Day, so I got out on that Tuesday. So that was my lead time. I learned from other guys who got out, when they tell everybody they're getting out, they immediately go put them in the hole for their own safety. Like, I mean, come on, it has nothing to do with anything. But they put them in the hole for their own safety. I shut my mouth. I said nothing to nobody.
Yeah.
So I stayed where I was, but I knew what was cooking. I called my daughter and I couldn't speak. I said, here's the deal. I said, I got some information, but I can't even talk.
Mm.
So she said, you're either dying or you're getting out. I said, yeah. I
Yeah.
said, you hit it. I said, there's one. That's right. So I walked out of there on that Tuesday, February 16th, 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible, Jerry. I mean, this whole story is incredible. The prostate cancer, what happened with that?
Well, when I got out, then I went to Rochester and had a biopsy. I did what's called a brachytherapy,
Mhm.
which is radioactive injections as opposed to cutting. And they actually plant radioactive seeds on every cell that's cancerous, and then they do uh, radiation for about 30 days. And since then, I've had a clean bill of health. The
Wow.
shingles actually lasted 3 years. It was a virus on the left cornea.
But you
And
didn't lose you
no,
have your eyesight.
I have my eyesight. This
Man,
vision,
what a just a series of just
yeah,
unbelievable things. Your wife dies, you get
yeah,
prostate
yeah,
cancer, you get shingles, you get COVID,
yeah.
you get compassionate release. I mean, that's just unbelievable. You survive cancer. So that leads us to what how you and I got together talking was through David
Yeah.
Roski. And I want to talk about this prison land idea because I saw the video and the idea, the concept, the game. Talk to us a little bit about that, Jerry.
Well, there's just a predecessor step there. I met a woman who's an author. She came to me, wanted to do a story on my life. She said it's unique, it's fascinating, and I'm thinking, it's just my life. It didn't seem like much to
Yeah,
me.
it's pretty unique.
So she happened to know another guy. They co-authored the life of Tupac.
Okay.
So she knew what she was doing, and then they took it to a screenwriter and wanted to do something like a series, and that's still on the back burner. That's a
Okay.
possibility that we can dovetail it with this. The game concept came to me because I looked at it similar to online poker, online any kind of game, and I thought, okay, these things generate decent amount of revenue,
Mhm.
and I wanted to. There's people out there. I'm looking at all the prison reform and all the laws, and I said, that's not the way I would approach it because
Mhm.
I don't believe in it.
Mhm.
What I do believe is when the guy that actually came with me, Gilberto Chavez, when he was 15, one of his teachers said, "Hey, you got talent. Let's do this. It's a one-on-one. Grab somebody, keep them out of the prison system. Grab somebody, keep them out of the prison system. Somebody's in the prison system. You talk to their family, help them out. How do you really need help? This direct
One on
help
one.
of,
Yep.
as opposed to, I'm not here to change laws
Mhm.
because
It's a big task.
it's a task, and is it ever going to happen? So I conceived of the game. We put it together as best we could conceptually for the money we had to do it. And uh, March 20th launched Kickstarter, and it's out there to be exposed to influencers who have followers and their followers followers. Send it out to people who can donate, contribute to this cause, because our mission is create something that generates a revenue perpetually, and we then will go to the people who get it, that
Mhm.
would be an advisory board, to take this money and actually put it to work where you can affect a person's life directly, and add the entertainment value to it. The entertainment value just fuels the game, and as you get it, as you get the game with players, one fuels the other. So that's my mission. That's why I created the game. That's where we're at. And right now we're in the early stages of the Kickstarter, looking for followers to support the cause and get us where we're going to go.
Well, I think it's fascinating too because I think people playing within the game become inmates within people who are making this game that went to prison. So it's all real, and they can become part of the society that everybody's so fascinated with because they haven't been there. And I think It's a unique concept. It's a unique idea. And I love the idea of taking dollars and putting them towards people that can really affect their lives. So I'm a fan, Jerry, and I've, want to help any way I can. Cause I think, uh, I know these games. To me, I'm an older guy. You and I are both,
Yeah.
past, but these games are a big deal, and they generate real interest, real following, and hopefully it can be one of those games.
Well, you understand, inside the prison, how many hustles there really are.
Yeah,
And when I was there, you couldn't just open up a poker table or a blackjack table. You needed permission. You needed to
yeah,
advance to do that. But those guys were doing that. Were making a pretty significant rake,
hmm,
and all the various hustles that are in prison.
yep,
And I want it to be, it's not glamorous. Okay. I
right.
want the player to realize that it's a tough sled. You can get stabbed in the back for any reason at any time. And it's the reality. So I
Yeah,
want it to be a very playable product, but also deliver a message back to those and help those that we can help.
I love it, love it, and there'll be links out there, and the Kickstarter campaign's already rolling, and we'll roll this interview out next week, and it'll be in the show notes too, with the link for people to get involved with it. Jerry, I mean, I think your story is like it should be a Netflix series. It's got so many different layers to it of things that you just like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And then, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And then you made it. I mean, you adapted your way all the way through. You survived. You are a true survivor of a lot of different things. But I'm curious, what do you think's your biggest takeaway from all of this that you've been through?
That's a good question. That what you think is important isn't is one of my biggest takeaways.
That's
And
deep.
I get up every single morning. I have my own routine, and I believe that being grateful for whatever you have doesn't matter is really the message I'd like people to be. It's all about yourself, being within yourself,
Mm.
and that's what's kept me where I am right now.
I love it because you lived it and you survived as a lot of people would have not. They would have just curled up in a fetal position and said, "Enough, I give," and you didn't. And I think so many people can learn so many different things from that. And I always wonder, like what it is that makes somebody a survivor as opposed to somebody that chooses victimhood because you chose to just survive, take the next step. They weren't great things that were in front of you, but you went ahead and stepped into it, figured it out, and continued to step. And now you are where you are. You served a lot of time in prison. Nobody turned off your brain. Nobody took your brain. You put your brain back into action. You never turned off your brain in prison. So
Couldn't.
I think there's a lot to learn from that. I really do, and I love the fact that this goes into 1,100 prisons, and people know, hey, it's not easy on the outside, but you don't have to quit. You can continue to work and go and do, and that's what you've done and survived it. And it's a story. I
The
I,
last
I
thing
wouldn't
I'll
be
leave you with.
surprised if this ends up being a series because why not? Why wouldn't it be?
Well, I think it's going to be because of who I've got involved with it.
Yeah,
These people,
professionals.
I'm going to be with them sometime in April, and we didn't just start it. We've been at this for about
Yeah,
three
and
years.
they do happen. I just interviewed Divine G. He came out last week,
Okay.
and his movie Sing Sing went to the Academy Awards, and he got nominated for Best Screenplay. Coleman Domingo was up for Best Actor, who played him in the movie. These things happen. They
Yes,
happen.
yes.
They
Good for
happen.
them. I appreciate it. And the last thing I'd leave you with is as long as you got, do not let that flicker of hope go out.
Don't lose hope because hope might be all they have.
That's all
That's,
there
that's
is.
right. Speaking of hope and gratitude, I want to thank Homestead Financial Home Mortgage letting me use all this fancy stuff here in the podcast studio. Hey, if you've got home mortgage needs out there, Greg Aftiev is your guy. He knows that stuff. Check him out. My book, Nightmare Success. Get it? It's at Armor All, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And if you want to go check me out on what I'm doing, go to brentcassidy.com. I spell it wrong. I spell it with a TY, not a DY. As I used to say to my people as I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Jerry Durand, thanks so much for sharing this story that you have. I think it's going to help a lot of people who want to take a listen.
I very much appreciate your time.
Nightmare success, in and out.